Hi friends, this is Jeannie Rainey here, and I want to thank you for joining me for another Focus Friday, where our focus is on the Simply Succulent bundle. It comes with stamp set and dies, with a bonus background die, as well as 4 sentiment dies. For this first card, we're going to start out with making a mask out of the thick white cardstock. We're going to use our embossing paste. I'm going to tape the mask onto a piece of cardstock, and using one of our tools, one of the palette knives, I will spread the paste over the mask. Now be sure and keep the foil on your container because that will save the paste from drying out quicker. So spread it like you're spreading butter or frosting. For this video, I'm going to speed through it, but I just wanted to get the paste on here, and we're going to set it aside to dry. Now you can use your heat tool to dry it, but for this video, we're just going to set it aside. We're going to work on the components for this rest of this card and set them all aside until it's dry. I'll peel off the mask and we just throw that away. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, there's some wonderful sentiments with this stamp set. Now, here's the next card. Oh, I take that back. We're going to do the sentiment for the card that we set aside, the background. We are going to use white embossing powder, and I wanted to show you a neat trick by using these coffee filters to save your surface, as well as pouring your powder back into your container. If you don't have a large container, sometimes it's hard to get the powder back into those small bottles. So by using this coffee filter, it works really well to pour back your powder into smaller containers. So I heat embossed, which gives a shiny look to it. Basically melts the embossing powder. Cut out several of the pieces of foliage for this first card that we are going to finish later, but we got all the components ready. And now for the next card, we are using the larger stamp. With the larger stamps, I turn them upside down and use the stamp pad on top of the stamp. Then I had already used a texture folder on the layer and cut out some of the components as well. Now for this coloring, we're using the dark and light Just Jade Stampin' blends, which are our alcohol markers. Now the alcohol markers work best if you use them quickly when you want to blend the colors. That's why we could have a dark and a light. And you can do this either way. You could do the light first or the dark first. With this card, obviously I'm doing the darker one first, and then I'll come in with the light and blend it together. Now you have to do this rather quickly because it does blend best when it's wet. So color it very quickly to get the best blend results. It's fun to watch this. It looks like this plant is just coming alive. You also have to be careful with the blends because they do soak through the paper. So you have to protect your surface underneath. Make sure you have something under it while you're coloring, because this alcohol markers will soak through the paper. So the sentiment I stamped on cinnamon cider, and I'm using dimensionals. Then I will go ahead and just adhere my foliage onto the dimensionals before I put them onto the card front. then I decided to go ahead and use dimensionals on the back, and you can see how the alcohol ink does soak right through the cardstock. And then using the liquid adhesive, I adhere it to my card base. Okay, there's another card. All right, now this one I've already stamped with the black memento. I'm going to go ahead and die cut the sentiment. And I did die cut the background, and as well as I used the white embossing powder to emboss before I watercolor. I'm using the acrylic block as a palette. So I just pressed it onto the ink pad, and together with the water painter, adhere the color. Be sure and clean off your brush in between colors. So I'm also going to be using mint macaron. This color is Highland Heather, the purple is Highland Heather, and mint macaron for the green. Okay, the ribbon is the sheer ribbon in the Pool Party color. Then I'm going to adhere the ribbon to my sentiment first, and then using the liquid adhesive, adhere the background piece that's a die cut. Just put some dots of glue randomly throughout it, and then adhere it to a piece of cardstock. I love the tone on tone. That's Pool Party. The embossing buddy soaks up the adhesive that comes through. I did have to trim off a little bit of the white on the right side. Now I store my watercolor pencils in one of our stamp cases along with a blender pen. Now I'm coloring this with the watercolor pencils, and then after I did the video, I went ahead and used the blender pens, which brightened up the color quite a bit. So the blender pen acts like water. It's a liquid that just brightens up your watercolor pencil's color. So I'm using Old Olive and Garden Green. So these are some of the pieces that are going to go on the first card that we started with, the embossing paste. So here's the sentiment that I had done, and I just put a bunch of the dimensionals on the back, and I will adhere the foliage to the back of this before I put it onto the card front. So it's the soft seafoam and Old Olive colors that we used, and the sentiment is on Bumblebee. So then I went and I made sure it was very dry before I adhered the sentiment to the front with the foliage. And then I'm also going to use some twine and make a bow and adhere that with a glue dot. So I make bunny ears and tie them in a knot, and I use a glue dot to adhere that to the front of the card. And just trim it off to where it looks right. And that's that last card, or the first one. Anyways, here's our 4 cards. This card was on a video from Stampin' Up, so I didn't have to recreate that wheel. And anyways, thanks so much for joining me today. If you've enjoyed my videos, please share and like. Again, it's the Stampin' Bundle, Simply Succulent. Comes with lots of dies, lots of bonuses, and I hope you enjoyed this class today. Thank you.